Welcome to the Group Home Riches Podcast. If you have the desire to be your own boss, create your own schedule, and become financially free while at the same time helping people in need, then you've come to the right place. At GroupHomeRiches.com, we teach people exactly like yourself how to get started in the group home business. And on this podcast, you're going to hear their stories firsthand. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Group Home Riches Podcast. Excited to talk to today's guest. We have Carlos Johnson with Safe Harbor Home Healthcare. If you guys are familiar with our podcast, our content, the Gold Course, you'll know that we typically talk about outsourcing. We told you guys, hey, get the group home. Don't worry about licensing or certifications. If you have a guest that needs any type of medical care, don't worry about it. You just outsource it. So today we have a gentleman on who you could potentially be outsourcing care to, or at least an example of somebody like that. So Carlos, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
We also have the founder of Group Home Riches, Mr. Andy Rothschild, in the house.
Good afternoon, everyone.
So yeah, I'm excited to get into the details, kind of learn about your business and how you got started and everything, because this is typically we're interviewing people that have gone, started with us and kind of gone through that business model. So this is going to be cool. I think it's going to be something a little bit different for me and Andy today.
Okay.
Before we get started, yeah, why don't we get into we'll get into the nitty gritty details of the business and stuff like that. But why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and kind of how you got into this business?
Sure. First and foremost, thank you guys for having me on the show. I'm very excited to be here. Again, my name is Carlos, also known as Coach CJ. I'm a nurse by trade, home healthcare agency owner, home care coach, and business consultant. Basically got into this field back in 2007. I used to be what's called a direct support professional, a caregiver, if you will. I was working with individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities. I worked as a DSP through school for years, even when I went on to nursing school. And it was something that I kept finding myself, no matter how much I elevated in my career path, I still find myself coming back to this caregiver role. So somewhere around like 2019, I said, how do I take this? It's obviously a passion. At this point, I have been practicing medicine for years, but how do I take this to the next level and make a bigger impact on individuals? So I thought about opening up my own home care agency. And I basically went back and I studied and did my research to think about what type of agency I wanted to do, who was going to be my target clients, what was going to be my niche. And I found myself with individuals with developmental disabilities, mental health, dual diagnoses. So started Safe Harbor, and we've been rocking and rolling ever since.
Beautiful. Now, Andy, throughout the years, I'm sure you've partnered with companies like what Carlos runs, right? Andy, might have lost Andy.
No, I'm Brandon. I'm here. I had to step away. What were you asking?
All good. I was saying, you're very familiar with home healthcare agencies. You partnered probably with many of them over the years.
Yep.
So, for the folks out there that might not be familiar with the business model, Carlos, do you want to just break down just kind of in simple terms, what are we talking about with home healthcare agency? What does that mean?
Sure. So it's actually a really good question. With home care, it's a balloon term. It can be with individuals from different populations, but essentially it's providing community-based or home-based services for individuals that would allow them to continue to live in the community, whereas without these services, they may be at risk for placement in maybe a long-term care facility or a facility for individuals with disabilities, things of that nature.
Beautiful. And Yeah, guys, we talk about this in the gold course. You know, we tell you when you get people like this that need the care, you could just simply outsource it to folks like this and kind of let them run the medical side of things. But you know, once you get rocking and rolling, we have had some people that kind of branch out and get into this field. So you guys, you know, especially for folks that have a background in nursing and in the medical field, and Carlos, that's a big majority of our people.
Mhm.
So if that is a passion of yours, if it is something that you would like to kind of scale out, you guys could kind of model Carlos and kind of branch off into something like that. So I think it's going to be really cool for these folks to kind of hear how you got started and the potential with it too. Because I don't know if you want to go into exact details, but this could be a very lucrative and kind of big business, right?
Yeah, it really depends again on what area or what realm of home care you go into, but it can be extremely lucrative. It opens up a different level of financial freedom. Um, I couldn't imagine going back, being on the clock after being on this side of entrepreneurship and this realm of home care. So it could be very beneficial to many individuals. Hard work is going to come along with it, but it's very rewarding.
I mean, we get a lot of people that they're putting in the hard work. You know, they're
Mhm.
working crazy hours. They went through school. They're working long shifts. Sometimes it's like overnight. It's back to back. But you know, when we get into the kind of the personal issues, talking to them, what made them, you know, start looking, you know, why are you looking to do something else, right? It often comes down to financial stuff. It's like even though they're putting all this work in, they're they're you know they're doing something for the community that's desperately needed. It takes a high level of specialization,
Yeah.
but you know, they're still a check to check. Can you kind of relate to that from a couple of years ago before you started this?
Yeah, so right before I started Safe Harbor, I was working as a floor nurse. I used to work at the VA Medical Center. It was actually to the point when I realized that I wanted to start an organization. I was working full time at the hospital, 3/12 a week, and then I was working 3/12 a week full time in a skilled nursing facility. Um, there are those moments where you're putting in all of that work and it's the wear and tear on your body, the wear and tear on your mental. And sometimes you feel like you are just scratching the surface. You're just, making ends meet. And I think I was in that place. And it was just like, hey, I have the education. I have these certifications. I'm killing myself working these hours, but it still feels like, I'm not on top of my bills, but my bills are on top of me. And it makes you want to just really buckle down and say, what can I do to really access financial freedom? So that was also a contributing factor to me really wanting to take things to the next level and start an organization.
Beautiful. Figured.
Yeah.
uh yeah, you know, you can either it's not really it's not like you could have worked more, right? So you either kind of clone yourself or or you go through that for a long time, I guess, until you kind of move up the ladder. Like how long would you have had to work like that schedule and that position before you could have gotten a significant pay raise?
Right. So, and I guess just for clarification, the reason why I was working the two full-time jobs like that, when I was working at the VA Medical Center, that was paying my bills, and just I was using that to take care of myself. When I was working in the skilled nursing facility, I was using that because I knew when I came into business, I did not want to come into business in debt because I was unsure of what revenue looked like when I started. So I didn't want to take out any loans. So I worked for months and months and months, and all of the money that came from the skilled nursing facility, I used as my launching capital once I started the organization. But to answer your question more directly, um, I could have worked for years at that rate. It's a lot of people. Nursing is one of those fields where it's been times where I've been working alongside a nurse who's like 70 years old, but they're afraid to retire. They're unsure of what things are going to look like financially for them. Um, I could have stayed in there a long time. And I just knew that it was staying at the bedside doing bedside nursing was not something that I could see myself doing long term.
Very cool. So, so you took on some extra work, started stacking cash. You knew you were going to have to kind of invest in the business. Um, when this was around 2019, you said?
Correct.
Cool. Why don't we walk through what was that process like to get started? Like if someone did want to kind of start, a home health agency, where would they start?
Sure. So, just the beginning stages, your foundational things, you're going to want to make yourself a legal entity. So that would include getting your LLC, your EIN, coming up with your company name, getting your business bank accounts. If they're coming in, if they know they want to come into home health care, I would always recommend, if possible, knowing what you want to specialize in before launching an agency. Because sometimes I feel like people try to provide services to so many different populations when it's just like if you niche down a little bit and you're able to focus on one specialty, you can be really amazing at that one thing. Um, so for instance, if someone was trying to go in through DODD, once they have that, I would always recommend them go to the DODD website. You can literally look at the tab and it'll say, become an agency owner, become a provider, an independent provider. You'll click it. There's a checklist. There's a list of many qualifications, things that you have to have in place. From there, I would say start gathering that information together. They're going to want you to make sure that you have your insurance. They're going to want to make sure you have that $10,000 in the bank for more than 90 days and or a $10,000 line of credit. You're going to have a bachelor's degree or so many years of experience. So I tell my mentees, take that checklist and just take it off item by item. Once you have all of those things, then if you're working with a coach or a consultant, I would say refer back with them and say, hey, I think I'm at a place where I'm ready to submit an application to try to get licensure. Have them go over it. If you don't have a coach, just go ahead and you can submit everything. And then once most organizations, whether it's Ohio Department of Aging, Mental Health and Addiction Services, or DODD, it's usually about 30 to 45 days for the application process. They'll let you know if something is, um, you have to do dodd.ohio.gov. They'll let you know if something is missing. And, from there, once you get through that application process, you're certified. And then the real work begins, starting to look for the clients and getting staff and determining if you can handle 24 hours versus drop-in services. So it can be a tedious process.
That's such a good point that you just made. You said that's when the real work begins. So, uh, we get people that come to us that are kind of, they're wondering if they should become a, assisted living facility, or if they should just go with our business model. And for most people, I just tell them, hey, why don't just start, learn how to walk first, because even if you get through that whole process, which is going to take a lot of time, typically a lot of money, at least as a, assisted living facility, because you have to have the property, you have to get it upgraded, then you need to go through the inspections and stuff like that. And even if you do get through that, you're going to be right back to the gold course, learning the basics, or you're going to have an empty home. So,
Yep.
um, I love that you make that point. So it's, even though it's a completely different business, guys, keep that in mind. Um, so you had to have 10K just in the bank, just sitting there. Um, is there any other significant investment besides like coaching or consultation?
No, so and again, so when I came in, that $10,000 line of credit or amount of money in the bank for more than 90 days was not a requirement. This is something within the last 3 to 4 years that they have kind of put into place. Um, so it wasn't really applicable to me when I came in, but just as far as other personal investments, just taking the capital that you have, start and getting some of these things in place. As far as like the insurance, these things all took money. Getting systems that you're going to need to operate your business. Every every dollar that came in was being accounted for when it was going out for me in the very beginning, especially before a client came in, because again, you just didn't know when that revenue was going to come. So I looked at it as if it was all an investment. And that's why I just feel like it's important for anyone to just make sure that you save. And, I'm all for just go ahead and start, but I think you should be intentional, hey, I'm going to do this. It might take about this amount of money. So I need to just have a little something set aside for, things to happen. So
Agreed. How long did it take for you to get through this process to the point where the real work began?
so my first time actually applying, I got rejected, believe it or not. There was an issue with my policies and procedures. I think I
Mhm.
was missing something in the driver's manual, and there was something, so I had to do like a revision. And then once the revision came back, you only have a certain amount of time to resubmit your revision. And I wasn't being mindful of the date and I missed it. So they rejected my application altogether. So I was just kind of down in the dumps. And then it took like maybe a couple months. My best friend, who was also a colleague and an agency owner as well, she kind of told me like, hey, it's time. You need to do this. Um, so after she lit that fire, I went back at it, applied all over again, gave them another $900 or however much it was at the time to apply. Submitted everything. I already knew where I went wrong with my policies the first time, so I submitted everything already revised. And I want to say it took just about the entire 30 days for them for the reviewers to go through my application. There were no revisions required the second time around. And then shortly thereafter, I had my meeting with like Department of Medicaid, and there's another group that you have to meet with. So all in all, I would say somewhere between like 45 to 60 days from submitting the application to being licensed.
Not bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad. How long did it take to get to the point where you could submit the application?
Um, the
Because you
first,
said
so the
because you
first
said you
time,
have to put
yeah.
together like policies and procedures, and I'm sure there's other paperwork and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to be completely transparent with you, Brandon. The first time it was a while. It took a few months. When the reviewer that I spoke of, these are actually attorneys who are contracted and work through the state, and they review everything that you submit to make sure it is in compliance. So you have to, dot every I and cross every T with everything you put into these applications. So it took me, I want to say maybe like 3 to 4 months to get everything off that checklist to make sure every policy, every procedure, every operating thing that they were requiring, everything that they needed was there. So about 3 to 4 months. Now, that was just my pace. There may be some individuals who can do it in 1 to 2, but for me, that's about how long it took.
Yeah, we get feedback from folks that look into the assisted living facility route, which it might be, somewhat similar, at least related process, right?
Mhm.
We hear like 6 to 12 months.
Yeah,
That's fast.
yeah, yeah.
This is this is why Andy, I know your skin's probably crawling just thinking about all the paperwork and stuff.
Not a fan of the paperwork. I am a fan of allowing other people to do the paperwork for me if they know what they're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was my next question. So, Carlos, did you kind of figure it out on your own, or did you hire a consultant to kind of walk you through it?
So I didn't have a consultant at the time. I will say that my best friend, again, who was already an agency owner, now a colleague, and her and I actually we were direct support professionals together back in 2000, in the early 2000s. She was that person for me to go to whenever I was unsure of something or I needed clarification. There were times I'd go out to her office with all of my paperwork and documents, and we sit at that table for a couple of hours. So I guess you could say she did provide some consulting services and some mentorship for me in the very beginning to help me through. I think that's important. Now we're in a generation where I think a lot of us agency owners realize that, we really have to help and pull up the next generation. So that's why I think consulting is such a big thing now. because it's getting harder and harder by the year for people to get in. And some of these organizations, some of these departments, they're not even accepting new applications. So they're making it really tough. So it's just kind of like when you have a shot, you really want to make sure you're consulting with someone so you can make sure that that one shot matters.
Yeah, agreed. I would never, Andy, if you were to go, start an assisted living facility, I'm sure you wouldn't sit there for a year trying to figure it out on your own, right?
No, the other thing we always mention is the fact that however long it winds up taking you to get it done is lost money,
Absolutely.
right? So if it takes you 12 months to get it done and you try to do it on your own and quote unquote save money, and you could have been making $10,000 a month or whatever your number is, that's 120 grand. Why not just pay somebody right now $30,000 to help you get it done?
Absolutely.
So
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So and Carlos, we could talk we talk more about this towards the end when you talk about, everything you do, but if people out there do want to kind of learn how to do this, you offer consulting as well, right?
Yes. Yep.
Beautiful. So, guys, if you're serious about this, maybe if you have a couple group homes rocking and rolling, you know you're working with these companies, you're wondering what they're doing, you're wondering if you're leaving money on the table. Yes, you are. But we don't want to sugarcoat this. It's not as easy as just like filling out a form and hiring someone off Craigslist and getting the money rolling in. But if you guys really do have a passion for it, ready to put in the work, this could be a kind of an ancillary service that you could offer underneath kind of the group home umbrella. So at a at the time of this recording, we have another gentleman who did that. I suggest you guys all go listen to that interview as well with Albert, who Andy, we talked to him a couple weeks ago. Kind of started with group homes, and then also kind of has like services that Carlos offers. So um, yeah, they could be very, very scalable, very lucrative as well. So you went through the process, kind of you got your license. Why don't you talk about, when you said that's when the real work begins? What tell the folks what does that mean? It's not you don't just get to fill out a form and then people hand you a bunch of customers.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. When you license, you have to go into these counties and get access to what's called a portal. Um, if here in the state of Ohio, with the Department of Developmental Disabilities, it's not like they're going to say, hey, you're now licensed and certified, so we're giving you access. You have to do the research, reach out to, if they have a provider support department within that each individual county, you have to go through a verification process. Once you get that access, you can go in there and everyone calls it something different. Some will say RFP for a request for proposal, or a provider search tool. But you can go in there and it'll have, individuals, it'll say like what type of services that they're looking for. You can see if those services align with the services that you not only are able to provide, but you are certified and licensed to provide. Um, Once you see if you feel like it might be a good match, at that point you then have to sell yourself in your organization. So you're shooting over emails to what is called a service and support administrator, which basically is a case manager that represents the individual served. Just say, hey, my name is Carlos. I'm interested in learning more about this individual. This is my background. This is my organization. This is what we do. And usually what they're doing is um, they're collecting in the agency owners that are reaching out to this request for a period of time, and then there's a hard stop date. Once they get to that stop date, they'll then go through, filter them out, take the top choices. If the individual is someone who is cognitively intact, where they're able to say yay or nay, they'll do that. If they have a court-appointed guardian or someone else representing them, they'll then look at that smaller list and say, hey, out of this, it could be 100 applicants or 100 interested agency owners, but out of that, we've brought this down to maybe 10. Out of this 10, I'm willing to meet with 5 of them, And then at that point, if you made it that far, you're then going into a face-to-face interview. It can be one person, it could be 5 to 6 individuals in the interview with you, asking you questions. And basically, they're wanting to know, why should we choose you and your service for our loved ones? The things that we're coming in there saying, they probably heard 1,000 times before. 9 times out of 10, this is someone who is already had services for many years of their life. So they want to know, what makes you stand out, what makes you any different from the agency before. And if they decide that they like you at that point, they want to move forward, you're then moving into the next phase, which is putting together that doing the ISP planning, looking at what are the service is going to be. You're going to have to decide if they're going to be in home, in a congregate setting, in a one-on-one setting. And then from there, it's about a month of planning. Unless it's an emergency situation, it can be a month of planning from the time you express interest in the end of. Did I lose you guys?
For
No,
a
no.
little bit, yeah, but you're back.
Sorry. Okay. But it could be a month of planning from the time you express interest in an individual, they accept you as their, new provider, to the time you start. Now there are other situations where, if it's an emergency case, you can get a call like, hey, we have this individual, this is the situation. Can you take them like today? And I've been in those situations before, and I've said yes in those situations. Multiple times. So it can go either way. But when you're usually just starting out, it's going to be more so the first process that we started, going on there, looking at the portals and submitting requests.
Did you do kind of did you do marketing outside of this system, like website marketing, yellow pages, running ads, or did you just kind of stay within that uh that hub?
So for me at first, it was just pretty much me staying in all of the counties that I was interested in serving. I stayed in their hubs and their portals, because they, still to this day, there will never be enough providers to meet the needs of every single individual that are in these portals. There
Okay.
are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people looking for a provider. So it wasn't really so much of, the individuals were there, the referrals were there. It was just about me landing the interview, selling myself, and obtaining that client.
Very cool. And the interview is with like the family or caseworker or whoever is working with the person who's in need of the services.
Correct.
Awesome. So that's how you got your first couple of clients, and from there, did you have did you have properties already to take people in, or was this more you're going to do kind of the in-home or in hospital care?
So my first couple, actually, well, my first client was a married couple. They were in their 70s. So I took care of them and their bird Junior. It was a little parakeet. But we provided what was called drop-in services in their home, and that was just something like 40 hours a week, for each of them. And then we eventually started moving on to, what we would consider 24-hour settings. And again, those individuals had already had their own homes. So I was just, finding a staff, placing them there, and running the site. I don't think I got into the place of obtaining properties. And again, when I'm saying obtaining properties, it's not so much purchasing them, but more so working with investment groups and kind of collaborative partners saying, hey, I need this house because I need to put set amount of clients in it. I didn't get into that and probably until like maybe 3 or 4 years in. And
Okay.
that's kind of where we're at now.
Yeah, the folks are gonna love that because
Yeah.
a lot of our people, you probably heard a couple of the interviews, they start by either renting or partnering, basically just, rental arbitrage, which it sounds like that's what you did. So I want to dive into that here
Yeah.
in a
Yeah,
second.
sure.
So yeah, so you're just going into folks' homes, kind of providing these services. Did you get employees quickly?
Yeah. So I was my first employee. It was me, and then I want to say at the time, I can't remember. I think one of my friends may have come on. And we kind of did it like that for maybe a couple of months, because shortly thereafter, that's when we got that first 24-hour house. So then that's when the next battle came, hiring employees, going through the vetting process is very tedious, um, work, vetting these individuals, finding people. And to be honest with you, we're in a generation where people are just lazy. They don't want to work. Or if they do come to work, they're just kind of there to get a paycheck. So we kind of went through that. Um, and then we staffed that first house. And after we staffed that first house, got a feel for, okay, for a 24-hour client, it's going to require this amount of staff. Now that we're looking to go on a transition and simultaneously open up more locations, we have a roundabout, idea. It's going to be about maybe 6 to 7 individuals to run a 24-hour location and support someone 7 days a week. So that's just kind of like the model that we go on. But that again is on if you're dealing with the base level. A lot of the individuals that we serve within our organization, we kind of specialize in like stabilization, highly behavioral clients. So we have high staffing ratios. So there have been times where we've had 24-hour clients that we've had to put 3 or 4 staff members for that one person 24 hours a day just to
Yeah.
support their behavioral needs. So staffing, and it's not even so much the hiring part, it's retention. I tell my mentees all the time, you can hire until you're blue in the face, but if you cannot retain, it's all null and void. um,
Yep. Yep.
you can have someone here today, they're gone tomorrow. So I am continuing. I don't care. My I can look in my systems and I can see there's not a drop of overtime. We are fully staffed. I am still going to tell my team we are continuously hiring, because anything can happen at any point in time. And next thing you know, 25 people are gone. So
Retention is huge. I
mm,
mean, it's in any business, yeah, you could run through hundreds of applications. You could get someone that's got a nice resume, they talk smooth, and then you find out they were just there, milking the clock, right? So, Andy, I heard that kind of hit a nerve with you. Do you want to talk about that? I think he brings up a great point that
Yeah, I
across
think
all
it.
businesses.
Yeah, I think it applies to a lot of things in life. Um, if you run apartments, same game, right? I mean, Brandon, you hear me talk about this all the time. I'm not looking to get the highest rent on a monthly basis. I'm looking to find people that are going to stay and pay.
absolutely.
Um, so whether we're talking about tenants, whether we're talking about saving money, same concept. It doesn't matter how much you make, it matters how much you take, right? It's not what you make, it's what you take. So, do you want to be the guy making $1 million a year and only able to put, 50 grand away? Or is it better to make 250 grand a year and put 100 grand away?
Yep.
So same sort of concept. And then taking it back to people. Yeah. When you are hiring, like the single most important, because it does take so much time, energy, and effort. In my personal opinion, it is much better to do your, focus and focus and focus, find the right person that you can keep on board at your company for a long period of time. Keep your team cohesive, keep it stable, and it'll save you a lot of time, energy, and effort.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, across so I see this with Andy, just with your construction team, the operational managers, and even the GHR team. Think about the folks that are providing that done with you service.
It's all the same people, same
Yeah,
people
they've
for
been
ages,
they've been with
decades.
us, over 5 years, learning the group home riches business model. So that's such a key point. Carlos, and I wanted to kind of show how that's across all businesses, not just this. But I'm sure with like with your consulting services, you kind of touch on that and brace people for that, right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, that's something that I always tell them too. And one of the things with retention, it's not always a voluntary loss. Sometimes, yeah, they're leaving because they want to go to another job or they just wanted that check. But other times there are situations where, and it's unfortunate, we hire with the best of intentions. People can come in here, fill out an application. They can say there's nothing on their record. In the state of Ohio, what's required is that they obtain that BCI FBI check prior to day one going into a home. but they can go into the home while those results are pending. Sometimes it can take 4 to 6 weeks for background checks to come back. And almost every time I've been in this situation since 2019, it is always the individual. They are quality. They are top tier. They work their butts off. They take amazing care of the clients. And here we are 4 weeks later, and you have a disqualifying offense on your background, and now I have to let you go. So situations like that happens, and that's something that my clients, my mentees, you just always need to be in a place of continuously hiring, because if you are taking the type of clients at homes that I do, we're providing service 24 hours a day. In the event that someone is not able to go to work or show up, that client still needs care. So that means you, as the owner, if you don't have a team in place underneath you, you need to be prepared to work. No, it was, that was just pretty much it. Just so in order to kind of mitigate or prevent that, just make sure you're always running those orientations, always hiring, always looking for new individuals to come into the door to train, because again, you just never know.
Beautiful. And course, marketing too. I mean, keeping the business so you could keep having work for these people. I'm sure it's
Absolutely.
huge. So I should have asked you this in the beginning, but kind of high level. Do you want to give the folks kind of an idea of what the organization looks like? We talked about the beginnings, what got you into it, the first steps that you got. Um, we've kind of touched on the fact that you have a couple properties, but do you want to give the folks just kind of high level? What does your organization look like? How many properties? How many employees? And then you can talk numbers or give an idea of revenue and stuff like that if you want.
Sure. So we have about 70 employees. With out of the and I'm just more so looking at leadership and caregivers. Again, we are throughout the state of Ohio in multiple counties. As far as revenue, we're now in a place where we're at about 3.3. And hopefully, next year I want to double that, but that's where we're at. These are some of our senior leaders here. As you can see up top, we have, let's see if we scroll up a bit. Yeah, up top we have Sheila. She's our director of health and wellness. She's a registered nurse. She is in place. She does all of the clients' clinical care coordination. She is the one when we have clients in the hospital. She is that point of contact, that liaison between organization, family, and hospital staff. She is transcribing the orders. She's working with pharmacies, ensuring MARS and TARs are in place. She's setting up appointments, and even on the low end, they love Miss Johnson. So if there's a situation where their tummy hurts, they'll call her, "Hey, something's wrong, my tummy hurts," and she'll sit there with them on the phone and do her virtual triaging. But she does that for us. She also does she's a med administration trainer. So she trains not only our individuals in-house, she's certified to train other agencies and their staff and certify them so they're able to administer medications to the clients in the homes, because we have individuals, again, who require Med Pass 1, which is just, regular pills, Med Pass 2, which would require tube feeding. You'll see that sometimes with a lot of your individuals with cerebral palsy. And then MedCert 3, which are insulin dependent. So, even a caregiver DSP with the training from a competent and adequate training, like Ms. Johnson is, she will give them everything they need to be certified and do those things in the home. So she is one of our senior leaders. Going down, we also have um, Monique Long. She is our director of organizational development. She does a lot of the planning for the organization. She oversees multiple teams within Safe Harbor, just like that, tedious policies, procedures, a lot of stuff with staffing and training. She handles those things. Right next to her, this is another senior leader. This is Jerry Warren Jr. He's our director of client services. He's the contact for all of the county board members and the state, anyone from the state. He handles a lot of the day-to-day meetings for all of our homes. He's in the ISP meetings, any emergency meetings. He oversees all of the regional team, in addition to the mid-management team, which would be the house managers and assistant managers and all caregiving staff. Very difficult department to run, but he does it really, really well. And then going down, we have Mrs. Sims. She was our field development and compliance coordinator. She's now the assistant director of organizational development. She does a lot of things with compliance, making sure we are operating at 100%. We are at all times in compliance with the individual counties and states, making sure that the services we are providing align with the services that we are billing for and the services that are required in these state plans. My executive assistant, Miss Angela Garcia, who is out right now on maternity leave. And then, yeah, so this is pretty much my team. And then we have Miss Harmon, who's also a nurse that serves as a project coordinator. Miss Brown, activities, clients love her. And that's pretty much the leaders that make up this organization. I'm very thankful for them. And that's something else that I tell people. As quickly as you can, it's important to get a team. I see a lot of people make the mistakes, when you're going from making $20, $25 an hour and then you're licensed and then all of a sudden you're getting deposits for 50, 60, $70,000 a week. It's easy to want to keep all of the money for yourself, but in keeping all of that for yourself and not making positions and being strategic as far as your leadership of your organization, you're going to burn out easily. It's important to find people that you trust, pour into them, build them up, because my senior leaders, they really create a space for me to where they run my organization. If I come into the office one day a week or one day a month or one day a year, my organization will run the same because of the work that they do. So I tell people, get a team and pour and give it everything you have, because they will then run your organization.
Beautiful. That was my next question. So you said we see the senior leadership on the page here, guys. These are the leaders underneath him that are handling the day-to-day activities. And then you have the caretakers and probably staff that work underneath them. You estimated about 70 people that are working kind of underneath you. And that's you probably have support teams that you're not even counting with that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, so you kind of touched on it. Such a great point there about the team. And we tell people, hey, you want to create a business, not a job. So
Absolutely.
you said, whether you go in once a week, once a month, or once a year, your business is going to run. So I absolutely love that. Probably talking to Andy as well. Same thing with his group homes. He's got it kind of systematized like that to where we always ask him on the podcast, hey, how long did you spend on the group home management this month? And he's like, yeah, an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, not much. Now I will say though, this is just me. Once once you kind of have a good relationship with your managers,
Mhm.
you kind of want to call them and talk to them. So, and then there, what percentage of the time, or am I actually even talking about the business with them? I mean, maybe 50% of the time. Usually it's laughing about something because you got to admit, you got to have fun with these businesses too. And there are a lot, at least in the group home business, a lot of wild stories
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that pop up. And if you guys have listened to enough of our YouTubes with our clients that start telling stories, it's great. I mean, you're dealing with human beings, guys. So the one cool thing about that is that yeah, there's always funny stories that seem to continuously pop up. So
And there's also, you know, just because you could only check in once a year, I doubt you do that, right? I'm sure you're constantly encouraging, motivating, checking on things. I almost think of like businesses as a garden, right? You have to be constantly looking for weeds.
Yes. I like
So
that.
Yeah. So even if
I take that and put that in a speech at a conference.
yeah, I mean there's days when I could just sit and like if I told Andy like, hey, what did I accomplish today? It's, not much, but I just sat there for hours, just looking for stuff. Like,
Yes, yes. Which is honestly, that's the worst part of, kind of obsoleting yourself from the business is that you keep thinking about it all the time. And, next thing you know, you're sitting down at your computer and you're like, I don't really have anything to do, but you continue sitting there anyways, rather than jumping in the pool.
Yep.
hey, but oftentimes you'll find a weed. You'll find a
Oh
weed.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
great.
once you start going down any rabbit hole, there's a million little weeds that you need to, tend to. But
So that's insane. I just want to recap for the listeners. So he was started out nursing, realized that hey, I can do something bigger. I can do this on my own. He went through that process, the paperwork, is saving up the money. Started out as he said his own. He was the first employee. Started doing in-home visits and things like that. Fast forward a couple years, he's got a huge organization underneath him, about 70 people. We went over the leadership, and he he went over it pretty quickly. Andy, did you hear the numbers portion?
no, can you
Three
maybe?
point 3.3, and we're not talking thousands. I
Yeah,
want
it's
to be
huge.
big, right? So yeah, so he's taking care of a ton of people. How many properties would you say you have, Carlos?
So a lot in the area here now, probably five, but in those we have multiple individuals. So that's what makes up, you know, the bulk of that revenue is because when, like I said, we have these highly behavioral clients. So when you have those, they come with, it may be one person. A waiver could be $589,000, $600,000 for just the one person. But again, that one person may require three people 24 hours a day. So when you're, I say all the time, scared money doesn't make money. You take those risks, take some of those clients that others may be afraid to take, stabilize them, let them know that they're safe, keep building that revenue.
So he's literally feeding a ton of people here, guys. So, uh, absolutely, that's crazy. That's a pretty quick time to kind of get to that point. I think it was like about roughly 5 years, 5 or 6 years that you've been unreal.
And then
So
those are just when I count my location. I don't count my drop-in clients. I really don't. I don't have too many, but we have several people who we just kind of pop in on, a few hours a week. But as far as like the big sites, that's what was included in that number.
again, we just want to kind of show people the potential in this industry. These are folks that you may want to, if you're just starting out with our business model, you may want to partner with somebody like Carlos. I mean, when you were starting out, did you ever go into like quote unquote group homes or shared living or anything like that?
So I didn't have the opportunity to go into other people's group homes. Just and really people just weren't willing. Sometimes people fear, hey, if I help you out, you're going to take away from my potential earning. But now, I've gone into other people's. I've let people come in, my mentees or just other people when they're considering like, hey, I think this is something I might want to do. Can I come in and take a look? I'll allow them to do that.
Yeah, I'm a fan of collaboration and not competition. So I know, Andy, you've mentioned in the past that you've kind of set up partnerships with home health agencies, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much the way that we run everything. It's all outsourced. Everything that we've got outsourced to home health.
So, Carlos, you've kind of touched on it earlier, but it sounds like with at least with the properties, it's almost like rental arbitrage, right? You haven't
Yep.
you haven't purchased and fixed up these properties or anything like that. Why don't you touch on that? What does that side of the business look like?
Yeah. So again, with the waivers, it can be the community based or home based. So sometimes it's you're renting the space, but a lot of times, depending on what level of home care you're in, especially if you're in a DODD wheelhouse, some of these individuals already have a home, whether it's a family home or another setting that they were in, and they're just looking for a different provider to come in, but that's just DODD. Now, another area that we service, which is the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, those homes are different. So, for instance, earlier today, I just went out and it's a 7 bedroom home. Now, with the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, you can put 2 people in a room, so that the earning potential for that home, it's a set rate for those individuals on a monthly basis. But you can have, since it's 7 bedrooms that I got in that house, I can put up to 14 people in there. So,
Carlos, out of curiosity, what are those paying? What
so
are we?
usually, so usually it bounces between 1,300 to 1,600 per person. Now the thing about it is, if you are with the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, they're called like RCC2, a residential care facility two. There are some instances where you just provide room and board. There are situations where you'll provide room and board and what they call general services. So general services could be, I'm sending a staff over there once or twice a week to take them on an outing or take them to the grocery store, something like that. But I still don't have that massive overhead of staffing. It could also be a situation where, you're doing the room and board general services, and then you do like what's what we consider the add-on, like you can have a therapist or a mental health clinician come in and run a group. So these are all billable things. But the thing about that I like with those type of homes is the biggest payroll is going to be about 50% of the revenue that you bring in. Payroll and overhead is going to take, it's going to eat that up, right? With these, the only overhead really is what you're paying for rent in the home. So if you're getting something, let's say you go out and find a home and it's the rent is 1,500, but you have several individuals in there and it's going to bring in, $20,000 a month. What's $1,500? It's a no-brainer. That's earnest, consistent, passive income.
Yep.
So that's that side of the business. You're essentially running what we call group homes.
Yep. Yep.
What does that talk look like when you're looking for a property to rent? Are you partnering with investors, or what does that look like? I see you laugh. This is something that a lot of our people in the school group struggle with. So I want to spend some time on this.
So that right there is like 80% of the battle, right?
Yep.
If you are a owner who's renting out a property, or let's just look at it from and someone who just obtains, investment properties. It's liability and risk. Sometimes you're saying, hey, you're gonna make it a group home, you're gonna make it a congregate setting, you're gonna have individuals in here that could possibly have behaviors. I don't want my home destroyed. So there are times where you have to, leverage certain things. So you may have to really go in there and sell yourself like, hey, I might be willing to do a longer lease, or I might be willing to pay a little bit more. Or there have been times where I've gone in with investment owners and property management groups, and I said, in the event there's any damage, my organization will pay for it. You don't even have to dispatch a member of your maintenance team. I will send my team, and I have a team of contractors for just about every different type of service you would need within a home, and I'll send them out. And I'll just notify you once it's done. Those are the type of things that once I really adopted that mindset, and it had my level of willingness there, and I was able to give that to some of these owners and these property management groups, they were then willing to say, okay, well, maybe we'll take a risk. Now, what I will say is, for people, once you get to that point to where you get the yes, they will allow you to make their home into a group home. You have to hold true to what you're saying. Take care of their property. Do not allow your clients and even your staff to tear the place up. If something breaks, fix it. Don't get complaints from the neighbors, because you don't want to have to start that same process over. So for me, I work with like 2 to 3 different individuals who have, property management groups and and investment properties. I stick with them. They know me, I know them, and it's just kind of like, hey, Carlos, what do you need? We're going to send you out, because once you have that rapport established, it's just much easier versus trying to start from the very beginning every single time with a new person. And honestly, a lot of people just don't want to take the risk. So it can be
That's
hard.
why we deal with this with our coaching clients, with our done with you clients all the time. I think the biggest mistake, it's not always a mistake. Let me rephrase that. Maybe the biggest kind of waste of time is going out, on Zillow or on Craigslist and looking for the perfect property.
Yeah.
I tell people don't do that. Go look for the perfect investor. Look for the perfect landlord and investor. So, um, that way it's not just about, one property here and there. And also you're just going to be calling through so many people that just don't want to hear it. You're going to be talking to leasing agents that do not care what you're talking about. You
Yep.
go out and find investors, or even like you said, you found a property management company that probably has access to, hundreds of properties, right? So,
Yep.
and then yeah, I think we kind of heard what your pitch was a little bit, but it's basically, you're letting them know that yes, you are working with people that, you're going to be having other people in the property, but I'm going to be here for a long time. I'm going to take care of the maintenance, right? I'll take care of all the management and stuff like that. So, and we go through all of this in the gold course. We tell you what our pitch is, how to find these folks, what to say to them. But at the core, you're really talking to these people about what's in it for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Andy, as an investor, and working with folks like Carlos, what are the advantages from the investor standpoint? Working with someone like Carlos or our group home operators compared to the traditional renter.
Yeah, well, number one, the primary reason why everybody gets into real estate is because they want quote unquote passive income, leveraged income, whatever you want to call it. They don't want to be working 40 hours a week. They want their money working for them. So if you have the ability to find a tenant that is going to pay you on time, take care of the bulk of the maintenance, not call you all the time, and is going to stay there for years on end, I mean, that's an absolute slam dunk because that's what you're looking for. That's your goal.
Yeah. And that's it. That's it in a nutshell. If you can communicate that to these folks, I suggest going to real estate meetup groups, or you can cold call if you want, but if you can get that across in your pitch, which we tell you exactly what to say, but if they can hear, I'm not going to get calls, like this person's going to be here a long time, they are going to pay me on time, they're sold.
Yep.
From there, it's
They're
like,
sold.
as long as you don't screw it up, if you've done the stuff we tell you in the beginning, if you have your wait list or your organization set up already, if you can explain the business to them, then yeah, it's a no-brainer. Every investor we speak with, they're at least, interested in the business model. And Carlos, do you even look for new investors anymore, or do you kind of have you
No,
you
I
you're
just
good,
stick
right?
with my same guys. They probably have to get rid of me before I get rid of them.
But I'm sure it helped. You didn't do this in the very beginning. You worked your way up to it, and then you had a track record of success. You could probably, did they were they very inquisitive about like what the business was and what the risk was and stuff like that?
Yeah, they were. I would say, the first and he's pretty much the main one that I work with. He was very curious. He wanted to know exactly who, the populations that I served. He wanted to know my business. He did his research. He went to our site. He said he had looked even for some of our reviews. Um, and then there was one conversation that we had, and he wanted to talk numbers. And there was a point in our conversation, and I would normally never do this, but sometimes when you're in the situation and the moment, you just have to do what you have to do. I knew that the type of guy he was, he needed to physically see it. I could talk
Hmm.
to him until I was blue in the face, but it literally had to go to the point to where I had to open up my phone and just have my account showing so you could see the type of cash flow and deposits. Once you saw that, conversation was over.
Conversation was over after that. Yep. The money talks.
Yeah.
Did you have to put together like a pitch deck like this, or did he just wanted to see like some type of proof of funds?
No, if I had something like this at the very beginning, I would probably be in a different place now. So this is amazing when I'm looking at here. It's just I always go for the same few things. Willing to go into extended leases, willing to pay a percentage over what you're asking, willing to cover all maintenance. That was just kind of my pitch, and then I just kind of sold them on the fact that um, I try to operate in excellence and with integrity personally in my personal life and within my organization. And I just hope that that was enough. And it's carried us this far. So, but again, if I had something like that, a pitch probably would have like a million investors that I would just
Hey,
say, hey, I need a home. I need this. I need that.
you might be able to partner with a bank, right, Andy?
Exactly.
That's the idea. Sometimes the difference between partnering with a partner and partnering with a bank, 9 times out of 10, you'll be able to develop a real relationship with a partner. Banks, I don't know, it's a little bit more transactional. They're usually employees over there, so it's just different.
Yeah, so I just pulled it up. So we have a sample business plan in the gold course, but most of the time, especially if you're just starting out, it's just going to be just like, basic human to human talk. They might ask for a P&L or something like that. Or, if it's your first property, you just be upfront with them. Hey, just starting out, but
Yeah.
check this out. I've been doing this marketing. I have this organization that wants to work with me and send people. I'm getting all these phone calls. I got these people on my waiting list. Um, it's not about there's no magic scripts, even though we have scripts in there, sample scripts. It's about doing the work to where you can actually be truthful and confident. So, like,
Yeah.
I forgot exactly what you said, Carlos, but it was basically, you know, um, acting in with integrity, things like that. It's not a, you if you can communicate that through your actions, it's going to be a no-brainer. And then, like Andy said, look, at the end of the day, these guys just want passive income. Are you really going
Yep.
to handle the maintenance stuff, not call them and pay them on time? You got a partner for life if you do that.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. Yep.
So we've kind of talked numbers and kind of you've kind of thrown some numbers out there on what this business can bring in. With the investors, do you kind of have a partnership, or I think you said you maybe pay a little bit above market rent, or
Yeah.
what does that look like? Or are you
So
just paying market rent at this
yeah,
point?
it's not really a partnership in that, I look at them as like a collaborative partner. We do work together, mutually between the organizations, but it's not so much like I'm not necessarily gaining anything from them or vice versa, other than someone who has properties for me to put people in and, me being a good tenant who's willing to back my clients. Just the networking is a benefit enough for me because there have been times with the people who I work with, um, they have connected me with other individuals, and it's been that connection allowed me to foster a relationship, and somehow we did business together, and that brought more revenue into my organization. I'm all about trying to have multiple streams of income, so I guess I would look at it like that. But as far as the going over the extra rent, that's just something that I try to do that to make it, more appealing to them, and so their willingness to let my clients live there goes up, basically.
Yeah. Hey, we have a lot of folks that look, if you've put in the work, if you got the gift of gab, you're good at selling yourself in the business. We have a lot of folks that look, it's just market rent. Just
Yep.
the fact that, hey, I'm gonna be here a long time. I'm gonna pay you on time. This is the money that I bring in. And I got, four other people that want to work with me. We get a lot of people, they don't have to pay above market rent or split revenue or anything like that. This all depends on the work that you guys, put in the beginning, your track record, confidence, etc. But I thought that was really cool that even at this level, you're still doing, it's basically just rental arbitrage. So I thought that was really cool because as you see, there's a ton of we have a partnership opportunities in the school group, and this is just one of those things that a lot of people struggle with. "Oh, I can't find a landlord that wants to work with me." It's yes, you can.
They're out there.
Yep, yep. All right, awesome. So, man, so you got multiple streams of income. You got the home health care. You got 70 people working underneath you. Um, you have the consulting business. You've built it. You built this thing up to where it's an actual business and not a job for you. What does your day to day? What does the day to day look like?
So just my personal day to day or the day to day of the organization?
No, did you like your personal? You
Yeah, I'd
you
like
can come
to.
in. You can come in once a month. You can
So
come.
honestly,
What does
this
that look like?
so this my true schedule. I'm in office on Mondays and Fridays, and I'm going to just kind of elaborate and piggyback off of something Andy said earlier. A lot of times when I'm here, my senior leaders are still running the organization, so I'm the one in the office being the distraction. I'm going around office to office, cracking jokes, trying to
Yep.
convincing everybody to go out to lunch, and it's just 10:30.
Yep. 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 Yep.
So,
Yeah.
I'm in because I'm just like, hey, I miss you guys. I haven't seen you since Monday. It's Friday,
Yeah.
that type of thing. So I come in on those days, and those are days we kind of typically have our heavy meetings. But throughout the week, a typical day, I'm getting up, I am taking my boys to daycare, and I'm out and about. If I have errands I need to run, if I'm home binging a show, just it's just a lot of freedom and flexibility in my schedule. There will be times, I'm always available to my senior leaders. So if they're in a meeting or there's something challenging that arises, they'll say, hey, Carlos, can you hop on this Zoom call? Or, can we link you in real quick just to get your opinion on something? I'll do that. And then off the phone or off the Zoom session, and then I'm right back to my day. So it's just I'm getting to a place where I can just kind of, how they say in the beginning, you do what you have to do. So later on, you can do what you want to do. Like I'm getting to that place of I just kind of do what I want. And I'm here Mondays and Fridays because I miss my team. So,
It's awesome.
Love it.
Yeah, I think that's the goal for the majority of people. I mean, people just want to be able to live life on their own terms.
yes.
But you do have to put in a ton of work at the very beginning. I mean, that's the key. And you talked about that. I mean, look, it took a lot of time, energy, and effort to figure out what you figured out.
Living life on your own terms is beautiful.
Yeah, don't I think too many people waste time looking for the shortcut.
Hmm.
Whether it's group homes, whether it's real estate, whether it's home health care, whatever it is, across every business, if you look into people that are successful, they had to go through that beginning part where you just put your head down and you hustle, like 60 to 80 hours per week.
Yeah.
So in a couple years, you can just chill if you want and go mess around with the employees and try to get them to go to lunch. But
Yeah.
you know, there's no magic application, there's no magic grants. There's nothing like that that's just gonna there's no shortcuts. So I think Carlos is a embodiment of that. So man, unreal, awesome story, Carlos. Um, I think the people out there are going to get a ton of value from that, even though even if it's something that if it's something that you guys don't want to do right now, I think you can really see the potential with this, especially if you kind of pair the two business models. I know, Andy, you've worked with folks like Carlos before. Um, Carlos, maybe in the future you can partner with people that got group homes and stuff like that. But why don't you tell them? Because I know this is probably through that Tuesday and Thursday thing. You have your mentees, you have consulting. We've talked about this in the beginning. At least you had a friend that walked you through the process a little bit, or helped you out. Why don't you tell them about the consulting services and the coaching and stuff like that?
Sure. So with the consulting and the coaching, I offer number one, uh, multiple digital products. Because some people, they may say like, hey, I want some help, but I can't afford this price point. So, you still want something that is accessible to everybody, no matter what their income level is. With some of the packages, what we do is we do cohorts. It's every 8 weeks. When they come into the cohort, there's modules that are already pre-recorded and edited. They get access into this community on a weekly basis. The modules are released. It comes with quizzes, homework assignments. They do these things throughout the week, and then at the end of the every week, we have a live coaching call. So that's being led by myself and everyone that is on in that current cohort. We just kind of come together. We do that week by week. Then there are some individuals, if you go through that 8 week process and you decide, hey, I want to move up into like what's called an inner circle, they get more intensive one-on-one training and coaching beyond, the 8 week cohort. Outside of that, then there are some people who just kind of, need coaches like, as needed. If they get stuck in a situation or they're unsure of something, they'll just like, hey, let's book a meeting, let's, have conversation, just kind of pick your brain on that. And I do that too. So it just really depends on the person. And outside of the packages and services that I already have in place, there's always ways to, do a custom package for some, for a person, because somebody may come along and say, hey, I literally need you to do I don't, I need you to not only coach, but I need you to do everything for me from, the starting point all the way up into licensure and then mentoring me beyond. That's a different situation. So, but everything can be customized to, the mentees wants. And I tell people all the time, if you are interested in any type of coaching services, shoot me an email. You can call me. Um, and you can book a consultation. That consultation is absolutely free, and that's just a time for us to get acclimated with one another. I'm really curious as to my potential mentees, their goals and their aspirations, what they want to do, because I want to see, how I can assist them in getting there. And I'm the type of coach, I'm very honest. If I feel like something that you want to do is outside of my wheelhouse, I'll let you know, like, hey, this is outside of my wheelhouse. This isn't something that I necessarily do. However, I will connect you with someone who does. So
I love that. You have it modeled very, very similar to us. So hey, start with the education. If you are kind of on a tight budget, it sounds like you have maybe like a course or a
yep.
group that's available,
Mhm.
and then different levels of service for everybody who has different goals and the kind of situation that they're in. And then yeah, same thing. Like if someone reached out to us and they're like, "Hey, this is my background and I'm interested in, getting this license to serve this type of crowd." Great. We're sending you to Carlos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have and we'll include this for the listeners, or if you're watching on YouTube, and kind of in the background, we'll have all this stuff in this description for you guys. But Carlos, do you have a website for the consulting service that you want us to pull up?
I've been doing the coaching work behind the scenes for quite
Uh-huh.
some time, but it's just like, it's getting to the point to where it's like, I'm doing it for multiple people. It's just like, let me just take this and push this all the way out there. Because it's people outside of, and what really drove me to wanting to do the modules and the video based setup that releases throughout the cohort is because how do you reach those people outside of your county, outside of your state? Even with the live coaching call, if you're just doing coaching, in office or going to them or them coming to you, you're just completely eliminating a lot of revenue that you could be bringing in. So that doing that model, I found, it opened it up to a bunch of people around the US.
Love it. Do you have a domain picked out yet?
So I'll have to reach out to the group, but I know it's probably like coachcj.com or something like that. But
All right, awesome. So you guys are hearing about it, almost first, besides the folks that are in your network already. So we'll we'll have that in the description for you guys. So that's awesome, man. Do you work? Is it only people in Ohio and Texas, or can you work with people nationwide?
nationwide.
So it's probably maybe a different website, or they call stuff, different things, but the process is pretty similar across the board.
Yep.
Dude, awesome. All right, man. I think we lost Andy, but
Yeah.
Andy, if you're listening, thanks for joining us. Carlos, man, thank you so much for coming on.
No
Um,
problem.
yeah, we definitely we'll definitely link up. We'll let me know when you get that website up.
Okay.
Our folks will definitely be interested in this stuff for sure.
Okay.
All right, man. Thank you so much for coming on. And do you have any last words for the folks out there?
Whatever it is that you're trying to do, just I wish you all well, the best of luck. Even in the rough moments, because we all know entrepreneurship can be tough in the beginning. I just want to say to you, just keep going.
Love it. And take action. We always say that.
Take action.
Take
Love
that
that.
action, guys. If you're on the fence, go through the free stuff, go through the educational stuff to see if it's something that you want to do. But if it is something that you guys want to do, take action. Even if that's just a quick email to us. It's Brandon or Andy at grouphomeriches.com, or you can reach out to Carlos. We'll have all his info in the description. But yeah, Carlos, thank you so much for coming on, man. We'll definitely have to link up again, get updates on the consulting services and things like that. And
Sure.
definitely when you double up, I think you said that was the goal, right?
Yep.
We're
Yep.
gonna, we're gonna double up. All right. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for reaching out. I'm glad we had you on. People are going to get a ton of value. This, me and Andy probably we learned a ton of stuff. So the people are going to love it, man. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
All right, brother. You have a great day.
You too.